Hey everybody and welcome. My name is Darren, and tonight I'm going to be talking about something that I find totally consciousness expanding, and that is the truth about spiritual aliens and what they are really like. Now, it's one thing for me to stand up here and just tell you about these things, or for you to read about them on our website, but it's another thing entirely for you to begin to realize them within yourself. And that's what the King Yoga experience is all about. It's about your own experience of these extraordinary spiritual truths. Now, if I was in your shoes, I might be wondering at this point, well, what is King Yoga anyway? And who is Dr. George King? And where does all this information about spiritual aliens come from? So, before we get into our guided meditation, I wanted to play for you a short video to answer some of these questions for you.
What is King Yoga? That's a great question. Putting truth and love into action.
King Yoga helps you show up in the world in a more loving way.
You get to look at the whole thing, which that changes the whole idea of spirituality.
King Yoga is radically new and radically different. When we sit down, our world needs something radically new and radically different. And we need a greater vision, a greater understanding of what we are doing here on this planet, what our purpose is, individually and collectively as a species. King Yoga answers those questions and gives us the tools and the opportunity to find a way through this chaos into a far more enlightened world.
King Yoga is a new term that we use to refer to the spiritual path of the Aether Society, which we use to honor our founder, spiritual master, Dr. George King.
He mastered the main forms of yoga, Raja, Kundalini, Nani. He could raise Kundalini to the highest chakra. He went into somatic trance over 600 times. He was able to do that within 2 minutes.
I had definitely a voice out of this world say to me, prepare yourself, you are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament. And later on, I found I could contact intelligences from other planets.
I was a little skeptical, but I listened to some of the lectures. I read some of the transmissions, and they were just all full of so much truth. It opened up my mind, it opened up my heart, and yeah, they blew me away. It all made sense.
The masters who used him knew that they could rely upon him to put their message through him, because he would put truth above all else, and he wouldn't color it with his own personal likes and dislikes.
Will you now try to go into a trance form?
I will try.
Yes. Mr. King has explained to me that, in fact, it may take him 30 seconds, even perhaps as much as a minute, to get into a trance. And during this time, he has suggested that we should be entirely silent.
I am known is Aetherius.
How will you answer the criticism that I've often heard levelled against the Aetherius Society, and against you personally, that you're nothing more than a crank?
To condemn is easy. To investigate is much more difficult, but much more profitable.
But nobody else has said that he's being contacted by people from outer space.
Oh, well, I've heard dozens of people say
Have you?
this. Oh, yes, absolutely. I must say I don't believe a lot of them.
But you think you're the only one, really?
No, I don't. I didn't say that. You said that. No.
But you said there are others, but you don't believe them.
I said I don't believe all of them.
You think flying saucers are visiting Earth?
Yeah, they've been visiting Earth for many thousands of years, yes.
Mr. King is sincerely misguided or deluded about the nature of the scientific aspects of his claims.
You've got to assume that they're fantasies. That is, that they are things which originate within the mind itself.
From the philosophical content alone, they are pretty fantastic. So they did come from somewhere. Either they came from my mind or they came from another source. If they came from another source, they're excellent. If they came from my puny little mind,
then I'm quite a person.
So I hope that gives you a better understanding about King Yoga, about Dr. George King, and about the trance-stated meditation that he used to become a channel for these beings from other worlds. Or perhaps you have even more questions, but we can get to those in the question and answer at the end. Let's turn now to our guided meditation. And let's just detach from the day, put everyday thoughts aside, so that we can revitalize our being, so that we can attune ourselves and open our minds to this profound spiritual truth. So I invite you to follow along with me and to tune in as I lead you in just a few simple practices. So let's just make sure that we're sitting upright, the back straight. And you want to make sure if you're seated anyway, that your feet are flat on the floor. You've got your hands on your knees with your fingers outstretched. You want your head slightly tilted upwards. And you just want to make sure your shoulders aren't hunched in any way. Your back straight, but the rest of your body relaxed at the same time. You want to close your mouth so you can begin to breathe through the nostrils. And also, if you wish, to close your eyes so that you can begin to draw your focus within. And as you do that, I just want you to make a mental note for yourself. Just check in with how you're feeling right now before we begin the practice. Just a word or two, whatever it might be. Are you calm or frazzled? Are you harried from the day or peaceful? Whatever it might be. And then just put that aside. And what we're going to start with is that we're just going to become aware of our breathing. And just ask yourself, is it shallow or deep? You want to breathe in slowly and steadily through both nostrils, and just try to lengthen your breath as much as possible, but without any strain. So just let your diaphragm swell outwards as you breathe in, and then pull the diaphragm in gently as you breathe out, just expelling the air from your lungs completely. Remember, if your focus strays at any time, you can always bring yourself back to become aware of your breathing again, using it as a focal point for your concentration. So let's just continue to breathe out and in as deeply as you can, but without any strain. We can introduce another question. As you continue to breathe deeply, are your out and in breaths equal? Just try to make them so. Try to make your in breaths and your out breaths as even as you can. And the goal here is to breathe out and in with a regular and even rhythm. No strain whatsoever. Remember, you're now breathing deeply with a regular and even rhythm. And this is a practice, of course, that you can do any time throughout the day. And as you do this, just allow any emotions and thoughts to settle within you. No need to force, just let it happen naturally, like sediment settling in a pool. And as you continue to focus on your breath, just let your mind gradually become clear as that sediment settles to the bottom. Now, when we perform yoga breathing like this, consciously breathing out and in, we are virtually imitating the action of God. In what way? In the beginning of all things, all was God, perfect and unmanifest. And then for some reason, unknown and unknowable to us on earth, God chose to create the universe out of itself. And this is called the great outbreathing of creation, when the perfection of God, like individualized sparks of the divine, became wrapped up in matter. And this is what we are, sparks of God. Let's think about what this means. It means that we are all divine all the time. We don't have to think about it for it to be true. We are God right now and always, albeit in an extremely limited form, incomparable to the full greatness of what God really is, but we are God nevertheless. Now, the great inbreathing of creation is when these limited, individualized aspects of God realize that they are God and go back to that state of perfection again, conscious of every experience throughout the whole of creation. And that is our destiny, to return to the perfection of God again. So as we continue this conscious breath out and in, deep, regular and even, remember, realize that everything in creation is alive and conscious even, to one degree or another, conscious of experience, which teaches us about the oneness of all things, and therefore our oneness with all things. Everything in creation is making its way through spiritual evolution back to this divine source. And the difference between us and the spiritual aliens that we are talking about this evening is that they are further along this journey than we are on earth, more spiritually evolved, closer to this perfection of God. So with those thoughts in our mind, let's continue now to breathe consciously out and in, the imitation of God. And whenever you need to, bring yourself back to the breath as a focal point for your concentration. Out and in, as deep as you can without any strain, making those breaths regular and even. So let's begin to open ourselves up now to the inspiration of the cosmos and these more evolved spiritual beings that we are talking about. Beings who love us more than we even love ourselves, who have gently steered us towards our own enlightenment for thousands, if not millions of years. Why? Because they know God. Because to them, we're one cosmic family. And every part of the whole is important to the whole. As we breathe out and in, let's think now that it's not just the oxygen which you draw into your lungs when you breathe, but the universal life force, also known as prana or chi, which comes to us in this solar system from and through our sun. In the words of Dr. George King, he said, "The sun is the most holy being in this solar system. It is the being upon which we all depend, absolutely and completely, for our very existence, for our very life, our very water, our very food, the very air we breathe, and the very universal life forces which charge that air with life, so that we might express and evolve. And of all the ways you take in this prana, breathing is the most important. And not just that, but you can potentize every breath you take to revitalize and charge yourself with this power. So we're going to visualize that the air around us is saturated with this prana coming from and through the sun. And then we're going to consciously take this into ourselves on the breath. So remember the deep and even breath, the still breathing out and in with this regular and even rhythm. And we're going to add to that now this visualization. We're going to imagine that the air around you is completely filled with a bright white light. And we're going to imagine that it is so bright that it would dazzle the vision of anyone who was looking at you now. So really see this light around you. You may even start to feel a tingling sensation around your body. Some people feel it as a pressure, or even like tiny pinpricks of light. This is what it feels like for me. And this is the effect of this prana coming into contact with your aura and your chakras. And one sign that your visualization is really working, which will come with practice. So we're seeing this bright light around us now. And what I want you to do is imagine that your body is like an empty drinking glass. And as you breathe in, imagine this glass being filled with white light, so that it is full by the time you complete that breath. And then on the out breath, imagine this drinking glass emptying from the top downwards, so that when you complete your breath outwards, there is nothing left in the glass at all. So fill it completely on the in-breath, and then empty it completely on the out-breath from the top downwards. Again, you're filling this drinking glass, your body, completely with this white light on the in-breath. And you're emptying it completely again from the top downwards on the out-breath. So filling yourself with this white light on the in-breath, and then emptying yourself again completely on the out-breath from the top downwards. So we've got our posture, our deep breathing, the regular and even rhythm. And now we're visualizing this white light filling our body on the in-breath, and then emptying it completely again from the top downwards on the out-breath. Here we're beginning to revitalize our whole being, charging ourselves on the in-breath, cleansing ourselves on the out-breath. Let's keep this going. Again, filling yourself completely with the white light as you breathe in, emptying yourself completely again as you breathe out. And let's acknowledge that with this practice you are beginning to develop a greater control over the flow of this prana, this universal life force, into and around your body. A stepping stone to the higher states of awareness. Let's remember that this energy comes from and through the sun, so that we can evolve through experience and follow in the footsteps of these more advanced beings that we are talking about tonight. And the more we regard this energy as sacred and use it accordingly, the more we can advance. So we're going to do just that. So far this evening we've been focused on drawing the prana into ourselves. But now what we're going to do is we're going to radiate it outwards with as much love as we possibly can. Anybody can become a channel for spiritual energy like this. And one of the best ways is through prayer. So let's prepare ourselves to do that now. So we're going to detach from that drinking glass visualization that we've been doing. And instead, we're now going to visualize a white light coming down from space into the top of your head. And we're going to see this charging your brain. We're going to see it coming down through your head, your neck, your shoulders, and into your chest. And we're going to visualize this now flowing outwards and filling your heart chakra, just a few inches in front of the breastbone. And you're going to see this chakra radiant like a bright star, as bright as you can possibly visualize. At the same time, we're going to see this light also coming down through your arms, into your hands, and into the palms of your hands. I invite you to just open your eyes for a moment so you can see what I'm doing here. And we call this the prayer mudra, basically the position, the hand position that we use for prayer. And the reason we use this is to allow the energy to flow freely from us, from the heart chakra and from the chakras in the palms of our hands. So we've got the hands like this, the palms facing forward. You've got your fingers together. You've got them roughly parallel, the height of your shoulders. And what we're going to do now, we're going to follow along with a prayer channeled through Dr. George King by the Master Jesus. And this is called the prayer for spiritual workers. And it's one that you can use anytime you wish for greater power and greater strength in your spiritual work. So we're going to visualize this now, this light pouring outwards from the heart chakra and from the chakras in the palms of our hands. And just going to follow along now as I read to you, first of all, the advice given by the Master Jesus with this prayer, and then play for you a recording of the Master Jesus speaking through Dr. George King. So the Master Jesus said this: "Say this prayer with your heart and with your soul when the world is cold to you, and you will be warmed. Say it when you are down, and you will be lifted. Say it when you are alone, and you will be comforted by a presence. Say it when you fail, and you will succeed. Say it when you die, and you will live. Say it so that you may gain sufficient power and strength to do greater things."
Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their limitations, would smite me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their weakness, would not heed me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their ignorance, would defile you through me. And I ask, Almighty God, O wondrous power, that your strength may be given to me now, so that I might be fortified with this, so that I might go forward bravely into the world, and despite reception, send forth my love of thee throughout all races of man. Almighty God, give me the power and strength to rise above my karmic weakness, the deficiencies in the pattern of my evolution, so that I might evolve and become stronger. I, and even stronger, in thy everlasting light. O God, thy will be done.
So now you can just relax your hands. Open your eyes when you're ready, relax the shoulders. Now, after sending out energy like this, what we tend to do is something called the sealing mudra. And basically you just wipe your right palm over your left hand once like that, and that's to just cut off the flow of energy, and also symbolic of completing the practice. Now that prayer is one that I absolutely love, and if you'd like to practice it again, you can find the link in the description below this video. And the more you do it, of course, the more you will have the power and the strength, as the Master Jesus tells us, to do greater things. So I just invite you to check in with yourself now at the end of the practice and just compare. How do you feel now versus at the beginning? You know, we just did a few very simple things there, and it didn't take very long at all. But these practices can not only change how you feel on an everyday basis, but they can unlock the portal to greater spiritual powers and wisdom within you. So let's turn now to our talk this evening, spiritual aliens and what they're really like. And I'll just preface this topic by saying that, one thing that I find really inspiring about this is that when we're talking about them and what they're like, we're not just talking about them, we're also talking about our own cosmic future. Not just what we could be like, but what we will be like one day. So I'm going to give you three keys to becoming more like them and to creating a world more like theirs. And we're going to talk about their physical nature, their technology, their culture. We'll start first, though, by talking about where they're from. Now, Dr. King was never the only one who was talking about advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, but he was different and even unique in certain of the claims that he made. And certainly one thing that made him different was that when he was talking about these advanced civilizations, he was talking about our own solar system, not some star system millions of light years away from here, but our nearest planetary neighbors, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and others. And you might say, well, how can that be? We've had rovers on Mars for 20 years. We've flown by Venus and Saturn, and we didn't see anything there. Well, the answer is that we need to start thinking about these civilizations in a completely different way. If you remember from our guided meditation earlier, we are talking here about beings who are literally millions of years more advanced than we are, further along this road of spiritual evolution, closer to the perfection of God, with a consciousness that is millions or even billions of years more evolved than our own. And one of the claims that certainly did make Dr. King unique is that he was saying, as early as the 1950s, that because of their degree of spiritual evolution, that these beings live physically on a higher plane of existence than we do on Earth. A plane of existence that our science cannot yet detect, but that one day it will, because these planes do exist, and you could go to them, and you could even meet these beings. Because we are talking about physical beings with physical bodies on physical planets in our solar system. And you know what? Dr. King did meet them. So let's talk about their physical nature, shall we? When Dr. King met a being from Mars, he had this to say about him. He was a full 7 feet tall with broad shoulders, narrow waist, and I noted quickly, abnormally small feet for a man of his stature. His skin was so suntanned that it looked a glossy cinnamon color. He looked about 30 years of age, but I learned later that he was at least 10 times this age. His eyes were dark and deep. His long brown silken hair hung down for his broad shoulders, and for a moment I caught his eyes and saw in them the depths of wisdom I have never seen in any terrestrial eyes. When he moved, he did with the controlled grace of a large cat, and he gave me the impression of great physical strength and keen mental alertness. So it would appear, from that description at least, that they are, or can be, humanoid like us. Just very much better in various ways. And one thing that really stood out to me was just how much longer they live than we do. We're told elsewhere that they have no physical sickness, that they have no old age, that they experience death in a completely different way than we do on Earth. There's no graveyards on Mars. In fact, this is what Dr. King had to say about that. If, after using his body for a couple of thousand years, I repeat 2,000 years, he wishes to vacate it, he will vacate this body, consciously split up the cellular structure of that body, and consciously rebuild for himself another body and inhabit it for maybe 2,000 more years, 4,000 more years, 6,000 more years, it doesn't matter, whatever he wishes. Just imagine for a moment that you had walked the streets of ancient Rome 2,500 years ago and you were still alive in the same physical body today. Or just imagine if you could remember every single one of your past lives, trillions of years of existence. They can. So what's the secret? How do they live for thousands of years without aging? How do they live with no physical sickness? How have they become such masters of a matter in this way? Well, one of the reasons is this. On Mars, all adults past a certain age have been taught to live on the vibrations of the sun and the vibrations coming from the very life force or the logos of their planet, the planet Mars itself. They do the same on Venus and Saturn and presumably the other planets as well. And so one thing that we haven't yet realized on Earth is that planets are living beings. Like we are living beings, but of course very, 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 very much more advanced than us. And it would seem that this relationship between a planetary race and its supporting logos is one of the most important aspects of its evolution, one that leads to the dawn of wisdom. And so that's one of the keys. One of the keys to our cosmic future is to respect and revere the Mother Earth as a sacred being, so that we can sustain ourselves with her life force, the violet flame, not in any way to exploit her, but to enjoy this beautiful, harmonious, spiritual union together with her. Let's talk about their technology, specifically space travel. And let me illustrate the point to you in this way. Venus is the closest planet to Earth. It's about 100 million miles away from here, on average. Now, in 2005, the European Space Agency sent a craft to Venus, and it took 153 days to make that journey. If you were to make that journey at the speed of light, it would take you 8.5 minutes. A Venusian craft manned by masters can make that same journey that we've just described in 2.5 seconds, meaning that they can travel at many times the speed of light. And in fact, we are told, and this is presumably without craft, that they can even travel at 4 million times the speed of light, which is the speed of thought. And you might think, gosh, well, that sounds totally absurd, even impossible. But how might that same thing sound to us in 1,000 years from now? Or even 1,000,000 years from now? Or even 100 million years from now? Because if you think about it in that way, suddenly it doesn't sound so impossible. We were given at least one clue by the master theorists as to how some of their technology works. And the way that he described the fuel that they used for their spacecraft was this. He said that they use the invisible light coming from certain frequencies of sound, and the inaudible sound coming from certain frequencies of light. And I think even though we barely scratched the surface there, we can all agree that their science, that their technology works according to a much deeper physical and metaphysical understanding of the universe than our own. But what is inspiring is that they have offered these technologies to other less evolved civilizations. They've even offered it to us on the condition that we use it for the benefit of all. But would we? You know, another great and wise extraterrestrial intelligence known as Mars Sector 6 had this to say about scientists on Earth. He said, "What sign do we require? Their goodwill, their complete open-minded honesty, and their proof that if we reveal to them the secrets of the vibrations of crystals, these secrets will be used for the benefit of all. We cannot reveal our science to the scientists of terror until they prove to us their godliness. We would only be instrumental in taking terror back another 70 decades if we gave the secrets of our gravitational control to you now. Would it benefit you? Not so. Would it benefit the ordinary man? It wouldn't. It would be used for belligerent purposes, a belligerence that would be covered by the camouflage of defense." I think what he says there is the secret of it. It's up to us to demonstrate to them our spirituality, or our godliness, as he puts it. It's up to us to demonstrate this unconditional love for all life. I think the Master Jesus says it all when he says these words. "Science by itself is like a soulless wanderer in the realm of night. Let that wondrous everlasting power from your hearts fall upon this science, so that it becometh as a tool in the hands of everlasting divinity, and not that soulless thing which you have made of it." So what about their culture? Well, I think the first thing to say here about any of the other planets in our solar system is that when we are talking about these beings, we have to remember that every single one of them in their worlds is more enlightened than even the most enlightened spiritual master on Earth. Imagine what everyday life would be like if everyone on Earth was simply unselfish, let alone enlightened to that degree. Imagine if everyone in your family was like a Yogananda, or if everyone at your work was like a Swami Vivekananda. What kind of world would we live in then? Well, on Mars, they have no rich class, they have no poor class, they have no monetary system. No one wants for anything. They have no war, no famine, no poverty, no physical sickness, as I said before. They have no political system. They do have governance, but they look to the only thing that really counts, which is greater wisdom, and they respect and revere those who are closer to God, who are a better reflection of the divine. And in our solar system, that means the masters from Saturn, because the masters from Saturn are closer to the perfection of God. So I wanted to play for you this extract from a lecture given by Dr. George King, in which he talks about these extraordinary beings and their amazing powers, which they use, by the way, to help all life to evolve.
Such a one has a still body which moves not. It's capable of a division of consciousness which it allows it to inhabit up to 1,860 positions in the time-space continuum at the present time. Well, of course, now we're starting to get lost. We've been lost all along, I'm afraid, but now we're really lost. Imagine anything being capable of having 1,860 bodies at the same time, and yet its main body doesn't move. Its main body stays in one place for, I don't know, 500,000 or 600,000 years at the very least, maybe even longer, just stays dead still, and yet it's inhabiting 1,860 bodies in the space-time continuum, physical bodies, in different parts on different planets, right through the whole galaxy, maybe, at one and the same instant, and is absolutely fully aware of what is happening to each body and can control it exactly. So it's possible for somebody on Saturn to be a tree on Earth, to be a sea, a sea on Venus, and a great cosmic master on Alpha Centauri IV, and a 27-legged animal on another planet, and also 1,800 more things at the same time, and know exactly what each is doing at one and the same instant, all built together into one great cosmic plan, each performing a very, very definite function.
So I don't know about you, but I found that totally mind-blowing. It's been rattling around my brain ever since I heard it again a couple of weeks ago. So what's the secret of their utopia then? What's the key to this civilization that they've been able to create? And the key is that their whole outlook is one of selfless compassion, about living according to the laws of karma, about tirelessly helping other worlds to evolve. It's about service to others. What is service? It's love in practical action, helping others. And if you're here this evening, I'd be willing to bet that each and every one of you knows that feeling which inspires you to want to help other people. That feeling which comes as naturally as your right hand working together with your left hand in order to help your whole being, because that's the secret of it, a realization of oneness, or at least an understanding of it. Did you know as well that the more you do to help others, the greater opportunities that you will have to help others in future, perhaps with greater knowledge, perhaps greater powers, perhaps greater enlightenment. And that is certainly true of these beings who have been helping others for eons of time. So let's imagine now that we can be more like these beings that we've talked about this evening, because we can be. The more we follow their example, the more we can become like them and create a world like theirs. The more we respect and revere the Mother Earth, the more we demonstrate an unconditional love for all and apply that to our science, the more we live according or in harmony with the law of karma, serving others, the more we'll be able to be like them. And I'd like to leave you now with this extract from a message channeled by the Master Aetherius through Dr. George King, talking about our future, our cosmic future, the new age on Earth, and this amazing spiritual promise that he gives us.
Gradually, mankind in the new world will learn to tap the great all-pervasive energy radiating from the logos of the planet as an intelligence. He will be able to bathe himself in this great light and thereby preserve his physical structure throughout the centuries. He will learn how to cause procreation without a physical contact. He will learn how to communicate with all the worlds. He will conquer all space. He will be taken to the far ends of the galaxy. Many and varied will be his experiences. He will gradually spread throughout the whole of space, finding out for himself its great mystery, solving these mysteries, understanding and living by the great laws In these days he will be evolved above all war. All thoughts of materialistic gain will be foreign to him. He will be evolved above all noon of political systems. He will be evolved above the use of his petty free will, and he will be given the key to the great portal of total freedom.
So there you have it, from the source. It's not just talk. We really are destined for all of these things. So we have a little time now for Q&A. Any questions that you might have, you can drop them into the chat, and I'll pick them up in front of me here. And if I don't get to any of you, do remember that you can always email me. That's darren@atheist.org. I'm sure Julian will leave that in the chat for you as well. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got a question here from somebody who says, why have spiritual aliens been visiting Earth? And that's a great question. We haven't really touched on it too much today, actually. And I think the first point is, like, yes, they have been visiting us on Earth. And the second point is, why? And the why is that they are helping us by helping us to raise global consciousness and create positive karma. Because if we do those things, we can transform our world. So what have they been doing? What are some of the ways that they've been helping us? We'll talk about a few now. For example, they have been visiting Earth in their spacecraft to radiate to us spiritual energy. Energy that we can use to raise consciousness so that people can be inspired by their own higher selves. They have been giving us teachings through channels like Master of Yoga Dr. George King, teachings that can inspire us with a greater realization of what we really are, about our cosmic destiny, and about what we can do most of all to help others. They have even incarnated among us on Earth, meaning that a part of their consciousness has been born here on Earth so they can perform some mission, so they can give some teaching, like the Lord Buddha and the Master Jesus, who both came from Venus, to give us their paths back to God. Now you might be asking, well, why would they even help us in the first place? And it's a bit like saying, why would you try to mend your own arm if it was broken? Because to them, it's as obvious as that. They realize their oneness with God. They know that we're all one cosmic family. And they want to help this cosmic family back to God. They have this compassion, this selfless love, this selflessness, which they manifest in this service which is about helping us to our own enlightenment. When we think about their psychology, we need to think about it in that way. That service to them is as logical, as I said before, as your right hand working together with your left hand to help your whole being. Let's see what else we've got here. Got a question here that says, you talked about what they look like in Mars, but what about on Venus or on any other planets? That's a great question. So, very interesting, on Venus, we're told, or we've had descriptions at least, that they take the form of a large ovoid. You can imagine like a large incandescent egg. And what we are told, though, which I find even more interesting, is that they can take any form they wish, whenever they wish. So when they go to another planet, for example, and that planet has beings with some completely strange body, different to ours, like a body with 27 legs, they would be able to form for themselves, build for themselves a body with 27 legs. If carbon was the basic cellular property of that body, they'd be able to draw that out of the atmosphere and use it to build a body that was complementary of that atmosphere and that environment. So these beings have tremendous powers. powers that we can only begin to imagine, a mastery over matter that we are only beginning to understand ourselves. You heard also about the masters from Saturn that Dr. King described, massive ovoid bodies, at least 15 feet in height, complete stillness, complete unmoving, and yet they're able to split their consciousness into all these different parts and operate throughout the galaxy. Let's see what else we've got here. How do I know I'm on the right path and doing it in the safest way possible? And I'm trying to contact aliens, however, I'm worried that I might attract something else, such as a negative demonic entity. Well, I think it's a very interesting question. I think this is coming more to the fore, more and more, especially with the awareness that Stephen Greer, for example, is bringing to this CE5 protocol that he has, for example. More and more people thinking about contacting aliens. And the way that I think about it is that it's not really about contacting them per se. We already have contact. We have this spiritual message that they've given to us. We have these ways that we can cooperate with them in order to help our world. It's about asking, what is the next step? What can we do to work together with them? And what we can do to work together with them is as simple as following the inspiration that they've given us, service to others. And in King Yoga, what we do, there are various ways in which we can work directly with them, which you can work directly with them. There are certain times of the year, for example, like right now, when a giant spacecraft comes into orbit of Earth, satellite number 3, and radiates down to anybody working in an unselfish ways, spiritual energy that potentize their actions by many, many, many times. So that the karmic implications of that action are very much greater and help to lift the world up just that bit more. So rather than just focusing on contacting them, I would say focusing on what's the next step. What can we do to work together with them? Now, if you're wondering if you're on the right path, I think it's a great question. I think there's 3 things that I always try to keep in mind. The first is that you can always study something from a logical standpoint, right? You can examine it from the standpoint of its philosophy, right? Which is the point that Dr. King was making in the first video that you saw. And then based on the philosophical content alone, is this a practical, workable, spiritual solution that can help our world? Is it something that can help you help other people and help you to enlightenment? And if it can, continue to investigate, continue to explore. Apply your intuition, the voice of your own higher self. How does it feel to you? Does it feel right? And if it doesn't feel right, perhaps you should leave that teaching alone. But if it does feel right, pursue it further. And then, of course, there's your own experience. What did you experience, for example, when you listened to those extracts tonight from the Master Therius, from Dr. George King, from the Master Jesus? What did you experience when you were doing that prayer, listening to the Master Jesus and his words? These things, your logic, your intuition, and your own experience will help to guide you so that you can use your own judgment to determine whether you're on the right path or not. I would say one other thing as well, which is that more and more, I think people are beginning to realize that the key to our future, the key to the new age on earth, the key to our own enlightenment, our own spiritual development, is service to others. And I think any path that doesn't have that at its heart is missing something and will eventually fade away, because service is really the one and only way. These are great questions, by the way. Thank you so much. Let's see what else we have coming in here. Are there spiritual aliens who come to this solar system from outside the galaxy? I think this is a great question because it begins to open our mind even more to what these beings are really like and what life is like outside of Earth, outside the solar system, throughout the galaxy and beyond. And we are told definitely that beings do come from outside of this galaxy to Saturn. Remember, the most evolved planet in our solar system, which is a seat of learning, which they come to be inspired by what they can become, so that they can go back to their own planets throughout the galaxy and share that with the people of their planets. We are told also that there are beings that come from outside this galaxy too. And the beings from our galaxy and our solar system, Venus and others, have gone even beyond this galaxy to explore others, to continue to understand the mysteries of God and creation, and to teach and inspire other worlds and help them to evolve. So we're coming to the end here in terms of our time for questions, but I want to thank you again for these really good questions that you've shared tonight. I'm here on email, darren@atheos.org. I would love to continue to answer those for you. And feel free to email me at any time, of course. I'm there always anyway, because I really love sharing these spiritual teachings and helping people to see what we all can become. So, as I leave you now, I'd just like to invite you to our online 12 Blessings service that's happening in just a few minutes at 8 p.m. And what that is, it's a way for you to do something similar to what we did today, radiate spiritual energy, but for global healing. So if you'd like to discover more about that, if you'd like to participate today even, you can look for the link below this video in the chat that Julian will leave there now for you, and you can discover for yourself what you can do to change the world with spiritual energy. And with that, thank you again so much for coming tonight. May God bless you all.